Ahoy and welcome. I am Lee the Pirate Tester, and welcome to the latest episode of Testing Tales. And today I am joined by Lewis Prescott. Welcome, Lewis.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming along. This is the first time we've spoken outside of tweets and emails, which is always
Ex-
nice. That's why I like doing these videos. It gives me a chance to speak with people
Exactly. Yeah, it's nice to see your face behind the emoji.
behind the pirate logos and all sorts. Yeah.
Exactly.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, my name is Lewis Prescott. I am a QA lead at Seracare, which is a technology company bringing technology into the care industry. So it's a really cool project to be involved with right now. And I am also a course author on Test Automation University, and I've spoken at numerous conferences before. Going to be speaking at Test Bash UK
Whoop, whoop.
this year, which is very, very exciting. Yeah, so that's me.
Nothing major. It's like your first day in testing. Wait, no, you've done loads of stuff.
I've done a little bit.
And I noticed on your Twitter profile, you mentioned that you're specifically an area of interest for you is contract testing and end-to-end microservices. And I imagine for people who are early on in their career of testing, they won't know what that means. It could sound particularly daunting. So would you be able to give like a quick TLDR of this is what it is?
Contract testing comes from APIs, but now has it been expanded into events and messaging and everything like that. But ultimately, when you're communicating between your API services, you have the contracts and they are the communication. So JSON format, they're what you're testing in a contract test. So it's just a communication between two applications. And then the microservices, where the microservices comes in is because now we're moving to cheaper, less expensive tech that you're hosting these services on. You've got loads of these now. So you need a way to scale those tests that you've got to those microservices. And so that's where the end to end solution comes in. So I talk about how you can isolate your tests and make them scale. So, yeah, hopefully that gives a little understanding to people out there.
And that's what because that's not something I've been involved with because a large portion of my testing time I was in financial services, and it was a lot of big, clunky legacy systems where you had COBOL code running around, and we've got
Hmm.
Linux and SQL servers, and it only just started to look into microservices before I left, so it's not something I've done. So it's just interesting to hear, be like, cool, how would I do that? And yeah, hopefully one day it's something I get to play with. So you do all these things, but how did you start? How did you get into testing? Because no tester, there isn't like a one size fits all thing for testers, which is great because it reinforces to people that there isn't one. And so, yeah, how did you get in?
Absolutely, yeah. So I did a psychology degree. So in no relation did I do anything towards software. I didn't even know the role existed. But yeah, coming out of my degree, I was looking for a job. It was a hard time, 2012. There
Oh,
wasn't many jobs going. I actually got a apprenticeship at a small company near where I lived, which did psychometric testing. So psychometric testing is effectively the software of people, which is evaluating your personality profiles, evaluating your scales amongst neuroticism, if that's how you describe the word, but like teamwork, leadership, all that kind of thing. I worked for them, but I did everything. So I was answering the phones in support, I was doing marketing, I was doing testing, but I didn't know what it was at the time. And yeah, so I just did everything at that company. And so then I was like, okay, the software side of things is actually really interesting. How do I get into that? And luckily, I found a graduate scheme which didn't have on the advertisement, you have to have a computer science degree, which a lot of other job specs seem to have. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll give this a go. I've got some experience in my current role and give this a go. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history, basically.
no, it's nice to see how CS is not needed. It's like, if
Yeah.
anything, I imagine people go, What you got a degree? Yeah, what was it in like psychology? Like, oh god, he's going to outthink us. He's going to go. We're going to do
Yeah.
these. Oh, what do they mean? And you can just like Jedi mind trick people.
Yeah. When you say psychology, people think, "Oh, like, can you read my mind?" And I'm like, "No, that's Darren Brown. Um, I know how your brain works, but I can't read it."
Can you? It's when can you like influence people into doing the things you need? Like, oh yeah, that was a great idea. Oh, how did you think of it? Now you mentioned how you've got a course on test automation university and how you've spoken at conferences, but I know that there's something else you do, which is you help mentor testers. And
Mhm.
I imagine, again, if people are new to testing, they're not used to having a mentor. They might not be aware of how a mentor can help them. So, would you mind talking about what you do as a mentor, but also why you do it? Because not everyone would want to, not everyone would be able to.
Yeah, so I guess coming from my background, I came from a very non-technical background. I basically failed the coding module on my graduate scheme, pulled it through from the skin of my teeth. So yeah, coming from that background, I've learned a lot, and I've worked for lots of different companies in lots of different environments. So I think I've come from quite a nice grounding to be able to offer that mentoring side of things because I have been there and done it. And that gives me the confidence to be able to, any junior that comes to me, I can put myself in their shoes and kind of understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, mentoring isn't about knowing, it's about being able to offer the person that wants your help just a bit of guidance in the right direction, and just be able to discuss with them where they want to go with their careers and be able to send them in the right direction. So a lot of what I do is just listening to what challenges they have, listening to what tasks they're getting involved with, so then I can say, okay, yeah, this person was talking about that on Twitter, or I did a great course on this a few years ago. Go check it out. So yeah, that's why I kind of got involved with it and what I do to encourage people.
That's fantastic. How long have you been mentoring for then?
So I've done it internally within companies that I've worked for, but this is the first time I started doing it a couple of months ago, where I'm doing it with other companies. So signed up to a couple of platforms, and one of them is Plato, where I've got a tester who's based out of Nigeria, and yeah, he kind of picked me out of the mentors, and now I'm guiding him on his journey from manual, not that I like to call it manual, but from non-technical to a more automation-based role.
That's and that's fantastic. It also just shows like the breadth of like we know that it is the World Wide Web, but generally it is very like
Yeah.
UK, Europe, America. But the fact that it's not even like somewhere nearby is miles away, but the internet allows that kind of event to happen is fantastic.
Yeah, and this platform's really cool concept as well, is because it's the companies that are paying for the service, and then their employees can use the service to find a mentor, which I think is a really nice way to do it, because that is one of the challenges, I think, is finding that mentor. I'm very lucky in my career that I've had people to look up to, and I've been able to reach out to them once I've moved on from a company and still keep in contact with them when I've had challenges that I've wanted their thoughts on. But if someone doesn't have access to that, then this platform is a really great opportunity for them to be able to access that.
I mean, that's amazing because in my head I was thinking they are having to pay you through PayPal or whatever. So it's the fact
Yeah,
that it's the companies that are doing it. I didn't
yeah.
know there was a way for that to happen. So
Mm,
I'm coming away with this from something, let alone anyone else who watches this. I'm like, I didn't
yeah.
even know that's a thing. Like I've seen some like generally the people in various communities where they give their time up for free or where they might do coaching and they charge X amount and so forth. But it's always seemed to be about the person who is paying because they're investing in themselves. But when it's companies are investing in their people to have mentors. I imagine it's especially useful if a company hasn't got suitable mentors internally, where they're like, we want to help this person out. We don't have the people for it. Okay, how can we get that person? That's fantastic. So that's definitely something I'll need to link in the description and be like, hey, if your company is wanting to outsource some mentoring, this is how to do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm also on some of those free platforms where you can reach out to me and I'll offer my advice. But yeah, ultimately, there are platforms out there that do this. And also, when you engage with a mentor, you may not necessarily want that to be someone within your company because the direction that you're taking it may not necessarily be the same as the company's direction.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is a great opportunity for people to have that unbiased view as well.
that's amazing. Another question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is either new to testing or looking at breaking into testing?
Yeah, that's a really great question.
And annoyingly broad.
Yeah. It's really hard to answer because it does depend on the context. But in my experience, I moved around a lot at the start of my career trying to find the right environment that I enjoyed working
Mhm.
within and that would help me develop within my career. So early on, I got promoted to QA lead very early on in my career because I'd worked for a consultancy. I had that broad breadth of knowledge, and I think that is one of the things is gaining that breadth.
Mhm.
As a tester, we're kind of someone who knows a lot about a lot of things, but isn't necessarily a specialist in one thing,
Yeah.
and I think that's really valuable. But I that was too early for me to be in that lead position. I hadn't learnt the basics well enough. I hadn't had that experience to be able to, when challenging situations happen, something to fall back on. I didn't have that experience.
Mhm.
So I took a step and I went back to a senior level role and I just kind of started again and forgot what I knew before and just started again. But actually, now I'm in a much stronger position than I ever would have been if I had stayed in that trajectory of leadership. But what I learned was that I enjoyed working in a cross functional team.
Okay.
So taking the kind of tester's definition out of it, I was now picking up tickets for front end. I was picking up back end tickets. I was picking up a DevOps ticket. And that was what I really enjoyed. And that's how I developed my breadth of knowledge in a much more technical aspect. So, my learnings from that is find the environment that you enjoy working in.
Okay.
And I think that's what I would suggest to people because it's one thing being around good people within your team, and that is a huge thing, right? Be enjoying going to work, enjoying the
Yeah.
people that you socialize with. That's a huge thing. But I found that, but the environment wasn't right. And then I moved to ASOS, and the environment was ideal for the way that I work. People around me worked in a very similar way, and that just accelerated my growth very much. So, yeah, for me, it was finding that cross functional team, but it may be different for other people. But yeah, I think that's what I would suggest.
Fantastic. So, as we prepare to wrap up, where can people find you online, Lewis?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. My name is Weege Prescott. It's a really odd tag, but it's just come from my nickname as a kid was Luigi, and then my brother shortened it to Weege, and then I created my Twitter handle from it. But now I'm using it for business, so it doesn't really make sense at all.
Because I was thinking, I am not going to try and pronounce that. I was like, it feels like it was trying to be a bit like Waluigi from like the evil version. So, okay, so
Yeah,
I was sort of close. So I'm happy with that.
it's very, very close. Exactly. Yeah. So chuck that in the show notes because no one's going to be able to guess how you spell that. But you can also find me on LinkedIn at Lewis Prescott, and then I have a website pactman.co.uk where you can find all my blog and my podcast and all of my talks.
It's fantastic. So hopefully people will be able to reach out to you when you get bombarded by LinkedIn and Twitter follows. That'll be
Yeah,
fantastic. People can,
I'll know where they've come from.
yeah. Thank you for appearing on the show today, Lewis. It's been very insightful. As I said, I've learned about this external mentoring company thing. So even that alone was great for me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully, you can repay the favor and come on my podcast one day.
I'm nowhere near as technical as you. I'd feel like a pretender on that.
No, absolutely not. It would be great to hear about your experiences that you've had in the finance industry.
Thank you for watching and join in next time for another episode of Testing Tales. Goodbye, everyone.